My name is Shana Hoehn. My project at Women in Their Work is called Hauntings. Hauntings consists of 13 sculptures made of wood, ceramics, plastics, and metals. These sculptures have been created from references such as ship figureheads, hood ornaments, hysteria studies, women in carnivals. Basically, this archive I've been amassing for the past 2 years that has tracked really similar gestures and how women have been portrayed through these studies and through popular cultures. They started out with ship figureheads that I was doing research for another project, and as I was noticing, like walking around Houston, there's a lot of hood ornaments that I was running into on gas stations, and so there's this little moment where it clicked where I'm like, these are kind of the same thing. And so I started to do research and collect other really similar objects, and I've found that a lot of the archetypes are repeating. They told this really interesting story, first of like European conquest and those figures being women mostly, and not all of them are sexualized. Like some of them are also like extremely very conservative, and so you have women and Native American men. There's only a 10-20 year period between when the ship carving industry failed and the American automobile industry was starting. And so they took these same characters and to tell basically the story of the start of America and then through post-war America. I've been scanning these objects, so I scanned an early Cadillac goddess and then have been digitally distorting her. At first, coming from mostly a video background, I'd been making videos for 5 years before. I was interested at the time in that you would have to walk around the video to choose like which image to see, and this idea that anamorphic imagery is used to subvert either erotic imagery or camouflage like dangerous political statements. Some of the first sculptures, I was scanning these sexualized mermaids with their hair back that have this like extreme arched back. And I was using a similar technique that I had in my videos, so that when you first walk in, you see the sculptures, you can't even see these women at all, they're invisible. And so you walk around them and they go in and out of sight. So a lot of the sculptures kind of are functioning in a similar way. The most interesting era of the hood ornaments I've been collecting have been the ones from the 1950s when they become hybridized with different types of jet planes. And so those I have in the show 3 sculptures that have been based on this 1956 Nash lady jet. I was also thinking a lot about horror at the time, since my archive had been at that point where I saw clearly a connection between like madness, horror, and eroticism. And I was thinking like, what is the most horrific thing I can imagine? And like using this kind of imagery, and I'm like, oh, the idea of a plane coming vertically down towards ground, like just imagining that image sounded pretty horrific to me. I slightly spiraled her, so she was spiraling down towards the earth. And so she has a face, and she face plants into the pedestal and makes this dent. Her feet become this Giacometti figure with a very pointy head that's almost also like a knife. You know, Giacometti sculptures, especially the emaciated tall ones, are mostly shorthands for figures that are affected by war, like World War II. And so it's this same era that I've been thinking about for these sculptures. So you have this different kind of elongation or distortion of the body that's happening during Art Deco for speed, right? And so I've kind of been conflating these two figures within that sculpture. There's another sculpture that's also black that comes from the same Nash hood ornament, the Lady Jet. These other ones I'm calling sisters. I tried to at first take out the distortion, but of course, like digitally or even in real life, when that happens, you can't just like take out distortion. Things start becoming, you crunch them essentially. And when I made this Lady Jet, when I crunched her, she ended up looking a lot like Venus of Willendorf. And so I really liked the idea that essentially through like the form of like rolling back time, that this femme form to talk about like going forward in the future also could refer to this ancestral female form. It's important to me to leave in some of these original references because I've been thinking about, since these original objects in this archive I've been creating, they talk to each other and they mimic each other, they exist across eras. And so there's something about combining these traditional techniques with these digital fabrication techniques that also allows them to be in conversation more fluidly. And so that relates to the title of the show, Hauntings. I've been thinking a lot about these forms as hauntings, and the idea of a haunting as something that exists between time. So it refers to maybe some sort of social wrong of the past that's very much in the present and like prompting some sort of action. So if, let's say, in like horror films, you have a haunted house and it's full of ghosts. And the ghosts, they're both like living, but they also are from another time. And I love that they're trying to push out the owner of the house to like reclaim their property. And also that they'll be there in the future, like continuing to like haunt or confront about the past. There's something also conceptually to me about how I see them that relates to the need for there to be this hybridity in the techniques I'm using. I've been thinking a lot about the potency of myth-making and why that exists, and also how these things have replicated themselves and are present. I mean, you can see modern forms of hysteria today. It's not that these things don't exist anymore, they've just taken other shapes. And that's exactly what this like image archive kind of has shown me, that we just take different shapes all the time.